Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, Hooters, shills, deslicers, peasants, vassals, mon petit imbéciles. I am a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about this story that came out that France also has a vast surveillance system, and you gotta love this stuff. Once again, it just shows you what a bunch of insipid political dipshits we have all around the globe, and they may have variations from country to country, but there's a common thread that ties these idiots together, and these bureaucratic nitwits. And so here we go again, and all the political posturing, but I'll get to that later. Let's first start with the story. So France also has a vast surveillance system gathering metadata from telephone, email, and internet traffic, just as in the U.S. system. It collects identities, places, dates, times, and durations. Collects text messages, fax, emails, and all internet activity on all the big networks run by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Yahoo. Boy, how about that deja vu? So all the same big companies, all the same access to all the internet traffic and all the electronic communication, and what they call metadata, which theoretically they don't read specific messages. And we know that's not true. So Barack Obama's lying, as usual, and Hollande in France is also lying. And, of course, now he's been caught lying, but he'll get out of it because people pretty much expect politicians to lie, so it's not like they're embarrassed or anything. So, and just like in the United States, this French system, all the different agencies in France have access to all this data collected. And just like in the United States, they also have, just like we have a massive construction, the Utah Data Center. I have a video about that. Feel free to look it up. And that's where all this metadata will be stored. And DARPA has already created a Rosetta Stone that can translate and sift through all this material and actually have access to the written word in the content of all these communications. So another thing they're lying about, and everybody's known this for quite some time. So anyway, I've also done a video about that Rosetta Stone that DARPA has developed to read through this metadata. So I'll attach that one below. And so anyway, there's no reason to believe the French aren't having access to specific content as well. And then the other part of the story that's so interesting to me is just this same kind of posturing, as I said before, just like with the banks, if one's doing it, they're all doing it. And just in the modern world, if one government's spying on its own citizens, all of them are doing it. And we're pretty much getting clear on that. But the thing that's interesting is listening to these politicians all posture, including Obama and Hollande, acting like they don't really know what's going on, or trying to justify it or dodge the question. So anyway, President Hollande reacted sharply to Snowden's accusations that the NSA had spied on Europe and the French embassy in Washington, D.C., saying it was, quote, unacceptable, unquote, one of insipid politicians' favorite words. And then he also said, quote, it should cease immediately, unquote. Knowing full well it wasn't to cease immediately, because he wouldn't be able to cease immediately the vast surveillance that France does either. And of course he insisted that France did not spy on its allies. And it took about a week for everyone to find out that France spies on its allies, just like everyone else. And technical director Bernard Barbier has said that France, quote, probably has the biggest information center in Europe after the English, unquote. And that was another part of this story I was going to do a video on, but now I'll just include it in this. And that's, of course, the fact that the British also have a vast metadata mining system, and they also are spying on everyone else. And so no surprise. So Britain, France, the United States, all spying on each other, all spying on everyone else. And French Parliament, just like the U.S. Congress, had known this all along. All the documents prove that they've been aware of this for a very, very long time. And so now let's get down to my bottom line. And actually, this ties in with the discussion I had with my fellow pontificator and friend, Bertley, the fact that Israel certainly has a surveillance system that spies on everybody else, but the irony, of course, is that everybody else in the world is spying on themselves and each other anyway, and so it goes. And another thing to point out, of course, the fact that once again we have both sides of the aisle walking hand in hand in every country, Britain, France, and the United States. It doesn't matter, administration after administration, president after president, parliament after parliament. They all have the same big agenda, which is the police surveillance state and everything that goes along with it. And so we're seeing this story exemplify that fact as well. And then just levels of hypocrisy on top of hypocrisy as all these weasels lie constantly, and then just have to adjust their lies to the lies they told before about all this happy horse shit. And then, of course, we have Spain, Portugal, and France, interestingly enough, have all refused Edward Snowden transport through their airspace because he's such a threat to democracy. And yet, now it turns out France has a surveillance system. And Spain and Portugal undoubtedly have their own type of surveillance systems. But that said, all these countries, Spain, Portugal, and France, had no problem allowing CIA extraordinary rendition through their airspace for decades. So a little bit of hypocrisy there, but as I like to say, hypocrisy is the coin of the realm. So so there we have it. So when you think about it, you have to imagine that there's pretty much a vast global surveillance dragnet that's been built for 30, 40 years, and it's in place and it's fully operational, and they can get your emails and its content and all your other communication in real time. So to kick and scream about all the details is kind of a moot point because it's here. It is here. And so that ties in with my theory that maybe this whole Snowden thing is to break the fact that everybody, you're being told, everything you say and everything you write is now fair game. They've got it. There's nothing you can do about it. And so people are going to self-censor themselves. People are going to quiet down. And that's the whole idea. A global shutdown of opposition, including free speech. So this is just part of the puzzle. Kind of makes sense. And so we can imagine that Britain, one of the most heavily surveilled countries on earth, would have a vast, amazing surveillance system. So we can take that for granted. So now we find out France does. And of course we know Russia does. And then all the countries that broke away from Russia inherited the intelligence systems from Russia. So they are all set up. We know that all the countries that the United States is involved in the Middle East all have must be surveilled on a vast scale, including Pakistan. And we know China surveils its population and probably has a lot of surveillance on a somewhat of a global level as well. And then, of course, U.S. allies like Japan and Germany would have to have some surveillance program. So we can make an assumption with just these few pieces of the puzzle more that every single country on Earth has a surveillance system. They have the access to everything that everybody's saying and writing everywhere on fucking planet Earth. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.